Welcome to the Smokeycast, a podcast brought to you by the Smokey Project. If you haven't been following us on social media for the last few months, here is a brief outline of what the Smokey Project is. So the Smokey Project was started after we suddenly lost our Staffy Bull Terrier of 13 and a half years, Smokey, at the end of July, very unexpectedly. He was a rescue dog. I rescued him back in December 2009. He had been used as a bait dog, which is a dog that they use to train other dogs to fight in dog fighting. He had a big scar to his head, a bite mark. He had a massive scar along his back. His shoulder had been burnt. All the fur was burnt there. And he was scared of other dogs. He'd try and run away from them. And it became apparent that he also had some nerve damage caused by the injuries that he'd received. So after we lost him, I decided that I wanted to try and help rescue dogs that were waiting for their forever homes. So I made the Smokey Project. The idea is each year it's a different rescue centre. Last year it was Manchester Dogs Home, and we collect donations of the things that they need the most. So last year Manchester Dogs Home needed a lot of hard-wearing durable toys. They needed treats and wet food, and we tried to collect a lot of donations of those items, and in our first year it went really well. So that's the idea of the Smokey Project. This year it will be a different rescue centre. So if you're on social media, we're on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. So give us a follow, give us a like, and you can keep up to date that way. But the podcast is just an idea of how to extend the Smokey Project and get people talking about rescue dogs. So we'll be talking to people who have rescued dogs, past and present, what it was like for them, kind of like how it's going compared to how it started. Hopefully there'll be a few funny stories in there, and of course in the first episode we will be talking about Smokey. So I joined my parents, and this is what they had to say about Smokey, the Staffy Bull Terrier. What did you think of Smokey when you first saw him in the kitchen?
I think because he was so thin, he just looked like he had a massive head, and like he seemed like he was all head. But
I remember you saying that a lot.
Yeah,
you kept going, "Oh, he's got a big head."
Yeah, he just looked huge, but I think it was because he was so underweight and so thin, you know. But he was friendly, you know. He welcomed us home, and he was really friendly.
He was jumping at you. I remember that.
Yeah, he did. He wasn't afraid of us, or, you know. I think with any rescue dog, you don't know what you're getting.
Well, we didn't know what we were getting with him, but how did Smokey help to change your view of how you saw Staffys?
Well, when we found out he was a Staffy, obviously they're branded with this horror dog and, like, you know, aggressive and you know, literally he was nothing like that whatsoever. He was completely different. He wanted a cuddle. He wanted to sit on your knee. He wanted to be with you. He'd lean on you.
He wanted to be in bed with you.
He wanted well, yeah. Basically, he was like a baby child. I mean, you know, he wanted to do everything that you wanted to do and be part of what you did, which he did. He came everywhere with us, and he was part of who we were, really.
Yeah, so I was looking on the internet, and a few well-known brands have breed profiles on Staffys, and they're described as highly intelligent, affectionate, bold and fearless, totally reliable, loyal, have a stubborn streak and quick learners. Would you
Have
say...
a stubborn streak, without a doubt. If he did not want to do something, he just didn't do it. Like, he would not cross the road where you wouldn't. He had to cross the road in his own spot, and it would be the same spot. And if you got past that spot, he just point blank put the brakes on and refused to move.
Or like when you called him out for his last wee at night, he would come down the stairs unless...
Oh, if there was a treat, he'd come.
A treat.
Yeah, if he heard the packet rustle, he'd be downstairs. But if he didn't, and he would actually look through the bars to see if it was worth his while coming down.
Yeah, what made me laugh when I was looking, they said have a stubborn streak, which requires a firm...
yes.
A firm handling.
Oh, yeah.
Firm and patient was the phrase they used.
You know, he got away with murder, basically, and we weren't firm enough with him, so he thought he was boss, I think that was half the problem.
Would you say he was highly intelligent?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, because he could play me a good one. He knew what to do, and you know, without a doubt, he was. They were highly intelligent. I mean, we used to have to buy him puzzles to tax his brain a little bit.
And he knew when you didn't have your hearing aids in.
Yeah, he was a pretty much. If the doorbell went and I couldn't hear it,
he'd come
would
and
pretty
get
much
you.
come and find me, or he'd just stand barking, looking at the door, looking at me, looking at the door. You know, so yeah, he was very intelligent. Yeah,
and affectionate. He was definitely affectionate,
without a doubt. Yeah, he was very, very very loyal.
Yeah. And he was a quick learner.
He was. You literally only had to show him something once, especially if it was treat related, and he would know exactly, like with the treats, he would know how to get the treat out the box. You only had to show him once.
Would you add anything else to like that breed profile?
I think they're very underrepresented. You know, I mean, if you want a loyal dog, then he was definitely that.
I'd say needy.
Yes, I would say, yeah. That if there was a downside, I think that would be it. They were they demand your attention almost.
And he would get in between. He definitely had a favourite in Dad. Dad was king.
Yes.
I rescued him. I saved him, but he didn't want to know me. He only wanted to know Dad.
I think his favourite really was Dad. I think it just used to make him feel safe.
Because if you sat next to Dad on the sofa...
He wouldn't let me sit next to Dad on the sofa.
He'd stomp over you.
There's no case about it. If he saw, he would come across and then sit in between us. Not aggressively, just like, this is where I'm sitting, I'm in between you.
But going back to him being stubborn, he knew who he wanted to take him for a walk as well.
Yeah, he'd just go to the person.
Yeah, because I remember Lee trying to put his harness on and he wasn't for having it.
No. He would just walk off.
Yeah, he wanted me to take him. This human has to take me today.
Yeah.
But he would do it if Dad was home. Dad was working from home. He'd cut, no, Dad has to take me. And he won't go with anyone else.
No. I mean, and he pretty much, when I was working, he would know, right, well, come on, it's time to pick up Mum now. And he would boss until you put him in the car and, you know, he wanted the ride to come pick me up.
Which is funny because he didn't really like cars at the beginning.
He didn't, but I think persistence prevailed in the end.
Because he always did something good at the end of a car
Yeah,
ride.
I think it was, you know, it wasn't always he's going to the vet. It was, you know, we'd put him in the car and sometimes we wouldn't get him out. We'd just drive round and come back. So he was never sure, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But, more, you know, it would be a treat at the end of it regardless.
What do you think the major issues were at the beginning? Because I remember it was getting him to eat slowly. We had to split his food up.
Definitely that. I think because he was so underweight, it was a case of, well, I'm getting food and now I have to eat it quickly. And there was more on the floor than there was in his bowl. But yeah, that was definitely an issue. And going for walks at first was an issue. It took him a while to settle and really go for a walk without howling.
Well, that was only when he saw other dogs because he was so scared of them.
Oh, the dogs were definitely an issue. And as we rescue dogs, you don't know what they've been through, so it's a bit of guesswork, really.
We had to put together what he'd been through. And like with the help of the vet and that dog trainer.
Yeah.
that was what
Yeah.
they came to the conclusion of what would happen to him.
Yeah.
So he never really he was always scared of other dogs.
He was, any dog sniffing around him didn't really go down that well, did it?
No, and he didn't go for a wee on a walk for like the first 5 years. And then when you took him on holiday for the first time,
he was pretty much out his comfort zone. He didn't like it because there was his back garden, and he knew that that's where he went. So we had a couple of rough days where he point blank refused to go to the toilet, and so that was a bit stressful. But then after that, it seems that he thought, oh well, I can go to the toilet on my walk and nothing bad happens. So.
Well, he learnt that he could go for a wee and stuff on the beach, didn't he?
He did, and it was the beach he absolutely loved in the end.
Well, yeah, he did. So, Smokey wasn't really a dog who misbehaved as such. He did things that was, it was things that were kind of
mischievous.
Young dog puppy behaviour.
Yeah, like chewing.
So what were the things that you remember the most that he shouldn't have done?
Chewed my glove.
Well, what I remember about that was that you gave us some big lecture on don't put things
in his way
where he can grab them, and then I came downstairs and he'd chewed the cuff off your glove.
A sheepskin glove.
Yeah, your favourite gloves.
And I still got the glove, but it just hasn't got a cuff on it. And then we were decorating. And he was on the bed actually, just watching what we were doing and what not. And we just happened to turn round and he had the bed knob in his mouth. Until we went, and then he was like, oh, I forgot myself there for a minute. And then
he ate the new wall.
He ate the new wall.
And you were in your bedroom.
Yeah, and we just went out and I thought, what's these matchsticks all over the floor? And he ate the new wall.
Yeah, I'd come home from uni and I remember thinking, what's all this debris on the floor here? And I think that was when he had separation anxiety at the beginning and he chewed the kitchen table. Yeah. And I thought, oh God, well, I don't want to lecture here, so I just swapped the chair that had been chewed for one that hadn't been. And then there was another time where I was in the living room and he was in the garden and he came tearing in like, "Way, look what I've got!" And he dug a plant up and brought it in.
Yeah, he'd soil out the plant pots for some reason. His bowl used to be full and he'd think, where's this soil come from? And he'd been eating soil out of the plant. Typical dog.
Although what makes me laugh is that he used to get up to all kinds of things in the garden, like when you accidentally set fire to that pan and Dad put it in the garden and you looked out and he was drinking rainwater.
Out of a rusty pan. I mean, he had 2 bowls of clean water in the house. No, the one out in the garden with the rusty pan, that was the place to drink.
So he wasn't like a dog that did lots of
I think it was
things that he shouldn't.
No. And I think as time went on, he settled in and settled into the family and he knew.
The only thing that he did was he thought the dishwasher was his personal licking station.
The minute the lid on the dishwasher went down, he thought it was tea time. So, yeah, he did. That would be something that Smokey would do, definitely.
What was the funniest thing he did?
I think... he did lots of things that, I think he made you laugh on a daily basis, really, just with his character. But when you were poorly and he stood on the...
he got on the sofa and stood on that juice box.
Put on the juice carton and it kind of just spurted juice like a fountain all over the place, He just made you laugh on a daily basis, just some of the things that he did.
Or when he came running in from outside and did a stoppie.
Oh yeah,
on the sofa. Put his front paws
I think that was
out.
more horror than funny. I was like, dear Lord, how's he managed that?
Although the fart story makes me laugh a lot. I thought about it the other day in work, where you said it was the middle of the night.
Well, it was the middle of the night, and he was probably on some of the food that you bought him at the time. I mean, he had a varied diet.
It was high quality food.
Certainly that. In and out, and. He kind of pumped, let's say, in the middle of the night, and I woke up and thought, what is that horrific smell? And I actually woke your dad up and said, is that you?
I think that's the bit that makes me laugh the most, that you woke Dad up and went, "Is that you?" And Dad went, "No."
Well, Dad was awake then, and then Dad's like, "Oh my God." And Smokey's completely out for the count asleep. But then Dad was convinced that it was a parcel that he'd left somewhere and searched the whole house, and then decided maybe it was just wind. So, yeah.
It makes me laugh the thought of like it being 3 o'clock in the morning and you're on the landing like looking for
Oh, and
it.
when you were poorly and you used to have to get up in the middle of the night to sort yourself out.
Oh, yeah.
And he would think, "Hey, everybody's up, it's tea time."
Yeah. So you'd let him out and Dad would be changing the dressings and you'd go back upstairs,
Yeah.
and then you'd come back down to put all the bedding in the washing machine, and then there'd be a face at the window. So you'd let him in from outside and he'd go and sit on his monkey spot and he'd start monkeying, and you'd go to him, "What is your problem?" And he'd get up and he'd take you to the cupboard under the stairs, and then he'd look at his breakfast things and you'd be like, "No way, get upstairs right now. It is not breakfast time."
He very much liked routine. I think that's what made him feel safe. So if his routine was disrupted at all, he was out of his comfort zone, and we'd gone away on holiday. So obviously there was only Lee here. And Lee, he got Lee up about 4 o'clock in the morning because we weren't here, and he wanted his breakfast basically. Lee's like, "What do you want?" And he brought him downstairs into the cupboard where his food is, wanting his breakfast. No chance. Like, you're not having your breakfast at this hour in the morning. So he was very, very much a routine. He liked the routine.
Yeah, he liked his comforts.
Yeah.
Like when you went away to New York, I thought, there's no point in me sleeping in my bed, because he didn't used to sleep like normally. He'd sleep across the bed and push you out. So I thought, I'm going to go sleep in your bed then. Only then what happened was he wanted to be underneath the duvet, and he had his bum on the pillow.
Yeah.
So that was how we spent the week that you were in New York. Him under the duvet with his bum on the pillow.
Yeah. Well, if you used to go out, and sometimes you wouldn't hear you come back in from work, and you'd go upstairs and he'd actually be in the bed with his head on the pillow.
Which is funny, because at the beginning you said
No bed, no
chairs, sofa,
no stairs,
no upstairs, not on the bed, and he did all of it.
He did in the end. Yeah, I think he pretty much didn't realise he was very much a support dog for us as well. When you were having a rough day and you come in and he was there, it was a nice, calmed you down a bit as well, so I don't think you realised that.
I think he just did his thing. He plodded round the house.
Yeah.
He did his thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, once he'd settled down, because he used to get quite excited when people came to visit, because he used to jump a lot.
that was at first was an issue, because he was a bit of a jumper.
And then, in the end, people would come round and he'd take himself off to bed. He'd go upstairs.
He would just like, "Oh, who's this right now? It's all right, I'm going, bye."
Or if it was Nan, he'd get on the sofa and just lie behind her back so she couldn't sit back on the chair.
That's right, yeah.
And she was too nice to make him move.
Yeah. Or if it was Grandad, he'd sniff his ear.
Well, he liked sniffing ears, yeah.
Yeah.
He used to like sniffing ears. A funny story as well, because he used to like sniffing Pete's beard, was when we came to get him for a sleepover. Because I think you and Dad were going to the camera show in Birmingham the next day. So I came to get him and I said to Pete, "Oh, you put him in the car." So he led Pete and Mary dance around the front garden because he didn't want Pete to put him in the car. So he came and stood next to me. And it was when we had the C1, so I had to open the door.
Small car.
Yeah, push the chair forward and I put him into the car. He got on the back seat. I pushed the chair back and then he did no more than climb between the driver and the passenger seat. And then that was that. So Pete was allocated to the back and I had to do Smokey's special seatbelt in the front of the car. And Smokey thought it was great, especially because that was when that lorry trailer caught fire. And the police were slowing everyone down, telling them where to go. So he thought it was great that he got to see the police as well.
Yeah, the policewoman was saying, "Oh, hello."
Yeah, he was proper "Oh my God, look at this person."
Yeah.
So he loved it. He thought it was great. But yeah, Pete wasn't really the biggest fan of him being on the bed. Especially when he came back from training that night and Smokey looked as if to go, "You put me off the bed." And I said to him, "Look, if he wants to off the bed, you're going to have to get off the bed."
Yeah.
So then Smokey would make to get up like he was going to get off the bed, and then he'd Just
Turn
lie
his back on you.
He'd turn his back on Pete like, ha, can't see me now. Or he'd go, oh, I'm that bag of flour, I've got no bones.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't lift him off the bed.
He'd just go really heavy, make himself 3 tons instead of 1 ton, and then you couldn't lift him up then. Yeah. He had his moments.
He did. So this podcast was originally supposed to be me, my mum and my dad all talking about Smokey, but my dad still finds it really hard to talk about Smokey because they were best friends. They spent so much time together, and sometimes the only person Smokey wanted to know was my dad, which is why it just ended up being me and my mum. It is really, really hard to lose an animal family member. So if you are struggling and you feel like you need some help, Google the Blue Cross bereavement service, and they provide different kinds of support for you when you're going through the loss of an animal family member. So that's it for this one. Thank you for listening. If you liked this podcast, tell all your friends, and don't forget to follow us on social media. We are the Smokey Project. Until next time, bye.